Good afternoon, everyone. Mark Clegg in the newsroom with an update on some breaking news. We are following the baby Lisa case. A news conference is taking place right outside the family home. Let's listen in to Bill Stan.
Was here and is here now, and what it's going to be. And then I'm obviously going to make an introduction. When I first came here at the behest of a certain party, I came with specific things to do, both for myself and the team that I assembled. There was a definite date certain when I landed, and there was a definite date certain when I left. There were things I needed to do. I feel I got them done. I will be leaving today, but that doesn't mean that necessarily I will be out of analyzing and consulting on this case. I may be back in front of the camera. I may be here, and you may not even know. Some of my team may be here now. It's not about doing anything that the Kansas City Police Department is doing. I was given those parameters. I believe I stayed with those. I kept my word, and I will continue to keep my word. Now, let me just say something about Lisa. This whole focus is about her. She is still out there. There was a $100,000 reward issued for her safe return. That is valid. That is real. We need to bear that in mind. If anybody has any information, no matter how big, no matter how small, do not come to me with it. Go directly to the Kansas City Police Department. And that's for anyone. And we're all citizens, whether we're from Kansas City, from Hawaii, from New York. The main priority is finding this child. Now I just want to introduce someone, another fellow New Yorker who's come to my attention, who will be taking lead, who is the now attorney for the family, and his name is Joe Tacopina, and I'll let him take over from here.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say a few things, and then I'll answer as many questions as I can. Can't promise I'll answer them all, but I'll take them all. And wanted to let you know that I think first and foremost, I want to start off where Bill left off, which is the focus on this case, we shouldn't forget, is on finding Lisa. We're optimistic that she's still out there and still alive, and the family prays for her return, her speedy return. And that's certainly something that really is our priority. And in the numerous conversations I've had with both Deborah and Jeremy, that's all at the end of the day they want to talk about. So first and foremost, that's what this is about. It's not about, innuendo. It's not about rumor. It's not about misstatement of facts. I've heard so many different things being reported out there. And it's not about rank speculation. It's about finding where Lisa is and hopefully securing her safe return. Along those lines, the family really wanted me to make sure I thanked Governor Nixon for his sending out the National Guard there and to help secure that return, and also to pursue a search. And I think some of the things we've gotten away from a little bit is boots to the ground and getting down there and doing everything we can do to find a clue, a lead, or something. So having obviously the National Guard called in, we're hopeful will add some positive results. And again, they want to thank the governor. I'm here representing Deborah and Jeremy at this point. And I'm going to be doing so, hopefully, just in this process, in the investigative process. While there's been notion and rumor about grand juries and cases being brought against either Deborah or Jeremy, I'm confident that won't happen, because I believe in the truth, and I believe the truth at the end of the day will come out. And I will have, by the way, I've secured local counsel in this county, in Missouri, who will be aiding me through this process, if there is a process. And again, I'm optimistic that there will not be a court process. Certainly there's the investigative process. And again, we hope for results that really we all be able to be very happy for one day. That being said, it took me a while to get out here. I've been in contact with Deborah and Jeremy and the family for over a week. But I wouldn't commit to coming out here until I felt comfortable coming out here. And what I mean by that is it took me a while to get comfortable with the facts of this case and really believe in these two people, these two parents behind me. And that's what I did. I embraced a lot of facts. I absorbed information. I was given reports. And in my mind, there's no question that Deborah and Jeremy, for that matter, had absolutely nothing to do with the disappearance of their baby girl. And I stand here to ferociously protect their presumption of innocence, at the same time to make sure that we keep the focus on trying to find Lisa. So it took me a week or so to come out here because, again, this is not a case, folks, that I would be representing these two individuals if I believed that they were in any way, shape, or form involved. It's not in my constitution to do that. Obviously, everyone's entitled to a lawyer, just not the lawyer of their choice. And again, for me, this was a case that I had to make my own decision, come to my own conclusion before I could step forward to represent them. I'm optimistic and confident that at the end of the day, the truth will come out. And any speculation, however rank that speculation may be, will be put to rest, and which is all we could ask for. And that's really it. I mean, again, the focus should be on them. I'll field questions which...
So you mentioned folks back on searches. Have you been satisfied with police and the efforts to search and how they've been doing the investigation?
I certainly don't know everything that the police have done. And I know that the police want the same thing at the end of the day as this family standing behind me wants. So I know that we all want the same thing. And I'm not here to critique a police investigation. That's for the police to do, and they do a good job. And you know, they're individuals who are committed to serving the community. That being said, I am a little disappointed with hearing some of the things I've heard over the last couple of weeks about how some people who are supposedly helping them in their quest for the return of their daughter have cast aspersions at them, have just made flat-out accusations at them without any basis in evidence. That's something that, to me, is something I can't be comfortable with. These two people standing behind me are two parents who are grieving every day, every minute, every second for the loss of their daughter. Hopefully she will come back to them, and hopefully she'll be healthy and they'll be able to move on with their life. But I think sometimes people who are speaking with them, making requests of them, forget that they are suffering every day.
Have they indicated to you at all that they have any leads or any, that they've gotten any closer than they were 2 weeks ago?
No, they've not indicated anything to me. And mind you, today is my first, while I've been speaking with the family for over a week, and others around this investigation, today's the first day I've had any communication with local law enforcement. So,
just to be clear, you're saying that you're disappointed with some people, meaning police, casting aspersions on the family?
Meaning people involved. What I'm not going to do here, I've made a decision that...
People are cops. What is it?
Well, I'm going to try and finish my answer, and if you're satisfied with it, so be it, all right? I don't see it serving any purpose for me to start criticizing the people who we are relying on to bring Lisa home. But people during the investigation, members of law enforcement, obviously, some members, not all, and certainly I'm not going to start identifying which members or which group, but I think in the questioning of these two people have been a little insensitive because they, again, are parents who are missing a child baby. And you know, do your investigation and start right here. Start right here. It's absolutely normal for them to start right here. But don't come to a conclusion before you have evidence and then try and look for the evidence. Keep an open mind and let's find out what happened to Lisa. That's all I'm saying. And some of the things that I've said, which I'm not going to get into, some of the things that were said during some of these interviews, I don't think we're called for, and I don't think it's conducive to a joint effort.
There was some speculation about the time frame.
Hold on a second, guys.
At one point,
your local counsel.
I have local counsel, and I understand. I'm not going to give her name. It's a female.
You think
I'll
it's
give her name
possible
out this point.
that you're preparing for a possible arrest here in the near future too?
Anything's possible, and certainly, based on what I've heard, it appears to be possible. But for the life of me, I can't see that happening at the end of the day here. I believe that there has to be, in a case like this, you don't arrest a mother or a father in a case like this without having evidence. I mean, real evidence, not speculation, not who else could it have been type stuff, but evidence. And if that's going to be the parameters in which we proceed in this investigation, I'm confident there will be no arrest of Lisa, of Deborah and Jeremy, and hopefully Lisa will be returned to them, and that's what we're hoping for. I'm not much to lay odds on what's going to happen, but I'm optimistic.
Have you heard anything about evidence, any evidence at all?
I've heard things that have been reported by you all, and I know you guys are out here doing your job trying to do the same thing, get information. I've heard some things that have been reported that have not been accurate. I've heard other things that we're not sure of. It's not exactly like the information's being shared. But what I have not heard is one stitch of evidence that inculpates either Deborah or Jeremy, and I don't expect to ever hear that because I believe in them, and I do believe that they're telling the truth.
What was it when you were preparing for this? What was it that swayed your mind to come on board, that made you convinced that they were not?
This is one of those cases that I have to believe. I mean, for me to be effective as an advocate for someone, I have to be passionate about the cause. I mean, that's sort of why I went to law school. It's why I like to take some matters on. I have 5 children. If I believe for a second that either one of them were involved in the disappearance of baby Lisa, I just wouldn't be here. And the reason, to answer your question, the reason I decided to come here and take this on is because after getting comfortable with the facts and after getting comfortable with them and speaking to others and gathering information for the last 7 days and spending time with them both telephonically and in person, I do believe in them. And to me, that's a cause worth fighting for. And again, I want to make sure the focus stays where it should stay.
On the Today Show today, she mentioned that initially she told police that she last saw Lisa at 10:30. Now she changed it to 6:40 or something around. How do you explain the difference in terms, and do police know that was this news to the authorities?
Well, look, when you tell a story several times and you're rehashing events of that night, on a normal night, when we're putting our kids to bed, you're not exactly clocking the times. And there are going to be discrepancies, but there are absolutely no discrepancies or recollections that are refreshed, perhaps, by others. There are no recollections that have been refreshed or discrepancies that have caused the police officer to take any action. And there's absolutely nothing in regards to Deborah's involvement in any of those statements she made that show that she had anything to do with the disappearance of Lisa.
That's a 4-hour gap. I mean, at 6 o'clock is still light, at 10 o'clock is dark. I mean, that's a pretty big gap.
Yeah, but there is context to be put in those answers. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to dissect the interview now, and I'm sorry if that's not enough right now, but I'm telling you that the answers that were given in certain contexts are just different. There were different interviews, and again, understand what she's going through for a second. Understand and assume for a second she had nothing to do with the disappearance of Lisa. She's a mother who is in a high state of trauma, who trembles every day and cries. And if her recollection sometimes isn't what it should be regarding certain times of events, I don't think we could really be too harsh on that inconsistency, if it is in fact an inconsistency.
Did the police learn of that inconsistency on the news, or did that come up previous?
Gonna have to ask the police that. I don't know.
Did she tell
I don't
them
even
that
know if
she
it was an
drinking that night
inconsistency.
too?
Pardon?
Did she tell them that she'd been drinking to the point where she was
Again,
drunk?
that's no. Okay, I understand the question. I appreciate it. Again, you'll have to ask the police what she told them if they're willing to share that. That's not what I'm doing here, and I don't want them to think I'm sitting here going through the facts.
Do you expect your clients to be re-interviewed?
I'm not leaving, guys. Don't worry.
Do you expect your clients to be re-interviewed, or will you offer them up for re-interviews by the local police?
They have nothing to hide, and they've said that from day one, and they say that today. But I'm here to give some context to the way information is shared here, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as what our goal is here. And our goal, this family's goal, is to make sure that this baby's found, or at least find out what happened, what could have happened. So as far as what we may do in the future regarding any further requests, it's a hypothetical that's a little far down the road, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Joe, if we are all on the same page, why is it that the folks aren't talking to local media? I mean, they're talking to networks. Local media has been a little bit frustrated because there are those of us that want to assist in getting the word out to the greatest extent we can, and yet we're being prohibited from doing that.
I could sidestep that question saying I just got here, so I don't know this, but in fairness, while I appreciate, of course, the fact that local media is important, perhaps most important in this instance, because this is where the focus should be, I think the thoughts by others who've made decisions in that regard have been, if it's just local media, it won't spread out to the nation. If it's national, it still will be covered locally, and whether or not that makes you happy or not, I appreciate what you're saying, and certainly that's something that we will all discuss, and you'll all have, I think I'm pretty easy to contact, and I'm very receptive. So when the time is right, there is not going to be any more interviews right now, media interviews by Deborah or Jeremy at this point. We're going to pull back everything at this point and just see where the investigation's going, and really try and focus on the issue at hand.
But if Bill is withdrawing and you're here, does that move it a little bit? You're withdrawing. I'm not saying you're withdrawing from the case, but physically you're going to be out of the case for at least a while. Isn't that an indication that maybe the investigation, at least in his stead, has gone as far as it can?
Well, Joe, my independent, have to be careful with my words, not so much my investigation, but analysis has not stopped. But the specific reasons I came down here, what I needed to accomplish, have in fact been accomplished. That doesn't mean, just because I'm leaving physically, doesn't mean I'm leaving this situation or this case, if you will.
What was that you wanted to accomplish?
Cannot comment on that at this time. I will be back when, I don't know specifically, but I'm just saying, just because I'm leaving now and Joe is taking first position, doesn't mean I'm leaving this case completely.
And it's not even about taking first position, guys. I'm a lawyer. I'm representing two people who obviously are in need. First of all, in need of answers. And so it's just simply about that.
Who's paying you to represent them?
There's no way I'm ever answering that question. I'm not going to talk about, my retainers, who is retaining me. It's just, while I appreciate it, it's a fair question. I don't discuss those matters. They're very private, especially between an attorney and a client.
Joe, is there going to talk about allowing the law enforcement to re-interview the boys, and where do you stand with that as far as representing the parents and the two boys that might shed some light on some of the gaps in what...
They've been interviewed at length, remember that. We want this investigation to be fruitful and productive. We really do. And we want to aid whoever's taking the lead in this investigation. But we also know certain things that are, helpful and will produce, and certain things that won't. We know the truth regarding this family's involvement. Now, that being said, I'm not closing any doors to anything at all. This is just day one for me, guys, and I need to really get down with the local prosecutors and/or the local law enforcement here, and my brief conversations with them today. The one thing I've said repeatedly is, tell me what you need. We all have the same goal. We all have the same desire to make sure we can do whatever we can do to find this baby. Tell me what you need, and let's work together. That's really what they want, and that's what I want. And again, this is not a case. This is an investigation at this point.
So, Joe, what do you want to see happen next?
I'm sorry, guys. I'm not going to. Wait, you moved, didn't you?
Yeah.
What did you say? Wait, hold on.
So what happens next? What do you want to see happen right now with this investigation?
Oh, I mean, well, what I want to see happen is, thank you. What I want to see happen is obviously what Bill just said is the successful return of Lisa. But from an investigative standpoint, I want them to do things that it appears like the governor just did, which is send out the National Guard. Let's get boots on the ground and let's find out. I mean, you know, and I don't want to get into specifics here, but there were things that I would have, from the outside looking in, would have liked to have done earlier that were done days later. You know, I'm hearing about, you know, teenage boys finding, you know, diapers in an abandoned house just a few blocks away from their home, 8 or 10 or 12 days after the disappearance. You know, I would have liked that stuff had been uncovered right away. I mean, there'd been a boots to the ground effort immediately. And listen, there are resources, and the PD's doing a good job. I'm not criticizing them, and certainly the FBI and any other law enforcement agency who's good enough to help this family. But what I want to see going forward is let's really do what we can do to find what happened to this baby. And that's a pretty generic statement, but I think things that the governor just did will help. Things along those lines, following every lead. There's someone out there obviously knows something. Is it more than one someone? I don't know. But I think we need to try and get to the bottom of it and really, you know, focus on things that will produce investigative results.
Do you worry that the focus being on Deborah maybe has taken?
Yeah, I do. I mean, again, that's my opinion. Look, the police have to start with the mother and father. They absolutely have to. And they're the first people that they should look at. But don't come to a conclusion because there's no other answers. And I'm not saying they have, but don't come to a conclusion because there's no other readily available answers. And just say, well, this is the most likely scenario. Because I'm telling you, we're all going to be, the people who have come to these conclusions without knowing a stitch of the evidence in this case are going to be surprised to see at the end of this that the truth is going to come out. I know it will eventually. It always does. And I believe it's going to come out here, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Joe, how many successful cases?
Police? When was the last time?
You know, again, the police have those dates recorded. I don't have them at the tip of my tongue. I'm not gonna speculate as to what the date was, but you know, it's been over a week. It's about a week or so.
Have police been trying to start communication up in that way?
Again, my first conversations with everyone have been today, and we've engaged in colloquy. I'm not going to get into my conversations with the police officers at this point, but law enforcement.
Joe, have you and Bill, either one, had worked with police before on kidnappings that have come to a successful resolution?
Well, I was a prosecutor for many years in New York, so I've worked on, you know, in Brooklyn, New York, by the way. I've worked in every sort of case there was to work on. You know, this is obviously, fortunately, a rare type of case. So, you know, being involved at this stage of this sort of a case where a baby's missing, absolutely not. But then again, I'm not an investigator. I'm not going out there, and I want to get out. I'm not getting in the way of the police. They're doing their job. They know what they're doing, and hopefully they'll do it in a way that is productive and not close-minded.
Joe, what the relationship was, given the concern for the child, which obviously, I mean, was foremost, what possible judgment call was it that allowed the mother to go on national TV and admit that she was intoxicated that night? I mean, what's the strategy behind doing that?
Okay. Again, I can't answer the strategy behind something I wasn't involved in. No, today's my first day as counsel. I don't know whose call was, but here's the thing. I'll address that question anyway. They have nothing to hide. I mean, they've said it time and again. I think they've been. I don't recall in recent history anyone under this umbrella of suspicion, if you will, be so open and forthright and you know, warts and all regarding the events because they have nothing to hide. They will believe me. They'd love to move me aside right now and come and start answering questions. That won't happen. But they are eager because they don't feel like they have anything to hide. And in regards to her acknowledging that she had wine that night or drank, you know, I think that goes to her credibility. I mean, you know, it's her being truthful. I mean, they certainly didn't have a blood alcohol test of her, and I guess in theory, perhaps they never would have known for sure, but that's something that she did, and she was willing to tell the truth and tell the truth about it, even if it didn't make her look great, because at the end of the day, she's got nothing to hide. So it's not about a strategic decision to make herself look good or bad. The facts are the facts, and the facts remain that she had nothing to do with Lisa's disappearance.
Joe, I know what you said about the media, no more interviews. Deborah and Jeremy are right here. All the cameras are here. The whole world is here. Is there anything they can tell us right now that you're comfortable with, just to get them up to the microphone?
Yeah, guys, I'm sorry. I mean, I appreciate it, and I know they would love to. This is not, you know, this is not a press event. This is not a entertainment production. And I know what you're saying, but they've said all they could say. I will tell you, they will say this. They will say that they want their baby back, and they want answers, and they can't sleep at night, and they have 2 other children that they also have to be cognizant of and mindful of in this process, okay? And that their life has come to a screeching halt, okay? That's what they would say. And they're begging anyone out there for help and for answers. You know, we're not going into another round of factual questions. They've answered them time and again. So that's really what they would say. But I want to pull back their appearances right now at this point on television, on radio, on anything, because again, I want the focus again to remain on the discovery, hopefully, of Lisa.
Joe, what specific thing, be it a conversation with the parents, or be it a piece of evidence, convinced you that this is worthwhile, that they're telling you the truth?
There's a lot of information I've become privy to that I'm not going to share at this point. You know, perhaps it's something that, you know, we could share with law enforcement and get together with them. And again, we've just started that communication process today. So there is factual information. And then there is outside information I've been given by third parties, right? I'm just not going to name. I'm sorry, I can't get more specific at this time. There'll come a point in time for all that. And then, you know, there's my visceral feelings and the feelings I get from having been involved in these sort of investigations, criminal investigations for over 20 years as a prosecutor's defense lawyer. And just spending enough time with them and listening to them and asking all the hard questions and seeing Deborah that first day that she spoke on camera and watching that at least 20 times, there's no scenario that could be contrived. That was real pain and real agony. That wasn't crocodile tears, whatever they call them, crocodile tears. It was real tremble, real terror, and I've seen it. And so it's a lot of information I've been given. It's some questions I had answered, not only by Jeremy and Deborah, but by others. And then it's a lot of gut.
So they still believe that someone broke their house and stole their child.
It's not important what they believe. What I'm telling you is they had no involvement. They don't know what happened. Obviously, they have theories based on evidence, based on certain findings in the house, but it's not about what they believe. Well, I don't think they think an alien came through the roof and took the child. So obviously, someone came into that house and took the child. Yes.
Can you address why there hasn't been day after day communication with the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department and the parents?
You know, I mean, it's to me, it's unbelievable that these 2 people behind me are even being criticized at all for that. They've been in communication. They've given repeated interviews for hours on end. They've made their children available for interviews. They've within the last few hours, signed a consent. You all were here when this block was closed off a few hours ago. They signed a consent for an additional search. They signed a consent for an additional search of their other house. I mean, they're cooperating in every sense of the word. But I will tell you, you know, cooperation does go both ways. I mean, these are 2 people who are yearning for information regarding the whereabouts of their daughter and wanting to understand the progress of the investigation. You know, I think they want to be on the inside of it, not on the outside. And more importantly, it's hard to feel cooperative when the people you're supposed to be cooperating with will come and at one point actually go as far as to indicate that they believe that you had some involvement. And I mean, that is heartbreaking. And there's also concern that's taking away from the real focus of this investigation. Again, the police have to explore everything, and they do. They do a good job. And I think, you know, these people are trying very hard. This law enforcement agency is trying hard. I know the FBI is, you know, perhaps the most competent law enforcement agency in the world. But you know, as I said earlier, I was disappointed to hear some of the things that went on in regards to some of the tactics used. You know, I think sometimes we forget who these two people are and what they're going through right now. And
Joe, have you worked any cases similar to these? And if so, how does that help you?
No, I've never worked a missing baby case. I think maybe, you know, a handful in the last several years, thank God. I mean, certainly a handful have come to national attention. I am sure there are, unfortunately, many others we don't know about. But no, this is not a typical case for any of us in this profession. So, and there's no case. Again, this is the investigation. I'm here to sort of be a conduit for them, to help them through this process that they're very unfamiliar with, and to make sure that you know, everyone understands that we're all on the same page when it comes to our desired result.
How were you selected?
Well, I didn't select me, so you'll have to ask maybe one of the family members. Maybe perhaps Mike could address that.
After the last couple of weeks of research and referrals from several people, and Deborah and Jeremy speaking on the phone with several lawyers and attorneys, they felt most comfortable with Joe when it was all said and done. Like I said, several referrals, including Bill Stanton, and through several phone conversations, that's who they felt most comfortable with. So that's how Joe ended up here. He's been in communication over the last week, and his credentials and resume speak for themselves. So, you know, with high press, high-profile cases that this has turned into, everybody in the family thought that this was the best fit.
Mike, how are you holding up for the family?
Yeah, sorry about
Every
that.
case is different, but this one has some glaring discrepancies from other high-profile missing children's cases. The parents don't come out and talk to the media every day and plead for their child's safe return. And also, it seems like the court of public opinion has flipped on them early on. So can you talk about why it seems like everybody is behind the parents and then they're not? When you say the focus is about the baby, but no one's organized searches other than police. It just seems like this hasn't grabbed at the heartstrings of the public like it should.
I agree with you. I mean, I agree with you. And this family has done all they can do. And they, believe me, have brought people in here, sometimes very privately, but they're doing everything they can do and exploring every potential, in their mind, scenario. And that's all they talk about every single day.
Joe, I'm curious.
And
how
and let me just finish my thought on that. You know, you're right. There is this public sort of pendulum, and to me, you know, I understand our need to rush to judgment, but for the life of me, cannot see how anyone other than saying, well, you know, perhaps it was them, or maybe it was them, because who else? But for some people to come to these conclusions of guilt without knowing a stitch about this case, or the investigation, or the evidence, is troubling to me. And you know, again, hopefully, at the end of the day, they'll see they were wrong, but hopefully the focus gets back where it belongs.
Joe, I'm curious, how is it that tough or aggressive questioning by the investigators derails or takes the focus off?
No,
when you're asking hard questions.
I didn't say that. I did not say tough or aggressive questioning by the investigators. They should ask every single question they could think of and more. They should ask every question 10 times if they have to, of Deborah and of Jeremy, and make sure they get the answers that they understand and are satisfied with. I'm not talking about the nature of the questions, the depth of the questions, or how often the questions are asked. I'm talking about things that were said during interviews regarding a certain individual's opinion of guilt of one of these two parents without any evidence to support that, just rank speculation. And that's not something, in my opinion, that needs to be done in this case when you have two people who are grieving for the return of their child. That's all I'm saying. I'm not talking about the toughness of the questions or the aggressiveness of the questioner. It's certain statements that could really shatter an interview process. That's all. Anything else, guys? Because it's getting chilly.
Given the fact that there was some discussion you guys initiated about drinking, whether it was one glass or multiple glasses, is insignificant. But while some people think that casts suspicion, doesn't it make great sense that that's why Deborah would not have heard an abductor come into the home that night? Doesn't that help make your case? Can you explain that?
Really not trying to make a case right now, but I understand your point. I think that's certainly one way to look at it. I mean, the notion that someone, if you want to accept the intoxication theory, that there's levels of intoxication. Obviously, we'll have a couple glasses of wine and not be annihilated. But one way to look at it is if someone is so intoxicated, how are they going to make a baby disappear without a trace? I mean, there's ways to look at it. I've heard that being said. I've heard things being said regarding, the fact that she was intoxicated would make it less likely that someone that individual would hear someone coming in. On the other hand, if someone's in a deep sleep and someone comes in without making a peep, you don't have to come in like a bulldozer. And most people, entering a home without permission to do so, do it covertly and quietly. So who knows is the answer to that question. It's a good question, and certainly one I'm sure will be bantered about. But it's again, that's one where maybe.
She wasn't able to hear the baby cry. She was that not being able to hear the baby cry, all those things that were going on. The fan was going, and not being able to hear someone, let alone hear the baby cry, right?
Well, there's a whole bunch of speculation to that question. I mean, who said the baby was crying?
I mean, no, if the baby was crying.
If the baby was crying, and if the fan was going to the point where it made noise, and if she was so deep in her sleep or intoxicated enough where she couldn't hear. I mean, yes, that's a possibility. I guess you're right. But, we don't know if anyone was crying. We don't know, I mean, I can't tell you how many times in the last week I just, with all the surveillance cameras in the world now, just hope and pray that, somewhere, somehow, a video pops out. But, unfortunately, that's not what we have. And going to have to rely on good old investigative tactics.
Joe, spell your last name. Are you going to let the police talk to the two older boys?
Again, let me just say this. Everything is open right now. We want to aid in this investigation and cooperate in any way possible. But I need to engage in a conversation with those people to make sure that I understand the purpose and that it is in an effort to help resolve the disappearance of baby Lisa. If that's the purpose of it, there's no reason not to. As long as I believe everyone's acting in good faith, please, because they have nothing to hide. We just look for answers.
All right, you've been listening to Joe Tacopina. He is the attorney who has been hired to represent Deborah Bradley and Jeremy Irwin. He is a high-profile criminal defense attorney, also a legal analyst. You'll find his name and his cases all over the internet if you look for him. He's been tied to such cases as the Joran Vandersloot case, who was the suspect at one point in the Natalie Holloway disappearance. Also worked with Michael Jackson's legal defense in his child molestation case. Again, he has been brought in now to work with the parents of baby Lisa Irwin and to represent them. No word on who is paying his retainer, which is estimated to be as high as $750 an hour. Among the other developments today that we've learned, Bill Stanton, the private investigator consultant who has spent the last week in town, is now leaving town, turning over the case to Joe Tacopina. Also today, some new developments that came out of an interview that the mom, Deborah Bradley, did with our Today Show NBC correspondents. We learned today that she admits to being drunk at the night baby Lisa disappeared. Also, there was a time variation now that we've learned. Instead of a late night, about 10:30, the last time we were known to have seen baby Lisa, according to the mom, she now says she put her down to sleep about 6:45 that evening. So several other discrepancies that have come out in the case. But again, Joe Tacopina, the big story now, he is the new attorney representing the family. He says he spent the last week in contact with the family and would not have taken this case, would not have come to town if he was not sure of the parents' innocence and the fact that he needs to focus on finding baby Lisa. We'll continue to follow this as well as the day's other developments, including a search of a wooded area and a creek. All of that will be coming up as we begin our first news at 4:30 and anytime on NBCActionNews.com. We'll see you then.